Leo listeners, Cara here from leolistening.com, where I bring together adventurous expats and intrepid travellers to watch and discuss movies so they can understand native speakers, themselves, and the world around them. So today I am joined by a very special guest, Elfin from All About Italian, who is an Italian teacher, but she has also been an English teacher as well. And she's now living in Italy, teaching Italian through TV shows. So I wanted to bring her on to talk a little bit about why she does that, how she does it, and just to bring in a little different perspective on things. Because I know, Elfin, your big thing is helping people travel to Italy through TV shows. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but do you want to introduce yourself a bit more? Is there anything else you want to reveal that I missed?
Hi, Cara. I don't think you missed anything. I'm Elfin. I'm really happy to be here to be chatting about this great topic of TV shows. And that's what I do. I help people stay connected to Italy and stay connected to themselves as well through Italian TV shows that are extremely popular at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. But yeah, I feel like actually you've been doing that for the longest time. We talked about this just a little bit before we started recording, because you've been on Instagram for several years and your approach has always been to just kind of show people, life in Italy. And I remember thinking, thank goodness you live in Italy, because that would be very boring if the equivalent in the UK. But I suppose people are always fascinated about...
I'm stopping you right then and there. I'm not stopping you right. I mean, this is the craziest thing you're saying. And that's something I hear English teachers. I'm lumping you all up in one group. I hear people say this all the time, that I still have some English students because I started out, as Cara said, as an English teacher. And it's not true. It's boring for you because it was part of your routine. But life in the UK, life in Australia, life in the US, life in Wales, life in Ireland, life in New Zealand are all things that fascinate people who are learning English. So the daily thing of coffee and so on would actually be really interesting. English teachers suffer from low country esteem. Can we say that? Is there such a thing? But it's true.
Okay, because I feel like, well, maybe if you live in a very photogenic part of your country, maybe it's a bit easier. But you think just when you think of Italy, you think it's naturally more appealing in some way. Like the weather's better, and you're always going out for coffee and stuff like this. So it looks more enjoyable. I don't know. There's something about the...
Yes. It looks exotic, enjoyable, and so on. It is true that everything is quite visually appealing. However, I wouldn't downplay the value of doing the same thing in whichever country you are in, of course, with an eye towards certain appeal, beauty, an eye to the pretty side, or it doesn't take much, according to me.
That's true, because I mean, you could obviously, Italy has, less attractive things. I mean, there are factories, there are roads, there are, waste grounds with nothing, every place has less attractive things. And obviously we're choosing, I suppose, when we choose to film things or take photos of things. So it's always a bit edited.
Yes. I think that I learned through Instagram, I learned to treasure my daily routine and see the beauty within my day, because right at the very beginning, I thought I have nothing to say. I have nothing to show. I have nothing, because you don't think, wow, I have a fabulous life. I'm going to share it with everybody. Nobody thinks that, no?
No, that's true. And I know we've talked to other people. We know somebody who lives on a farm in Brazil, and she was saying the same thing. I have nothing to say, and it's you live the wildest life in the jungle in Brazil, living on this farm. Like so many people would love to know, how do you live? What's your daily routine like? How do you manage living in this unusual way? But yeah, I suppose we all forget that when we're in it, we don't realize that to the outside it could actually be quite interesting and valuable. And as you've shown, it can also help to, teach people Italian, give them that motivation to learn Italian and help them feel like they're there, even though, they're just watching a short video on Instagram. It still kind of transports them. So maybe we can talk a bit more about this. Yeah, this whole concept that you talk about, traveling to Italy with TV shows, which I think has become more important during the pandemic, especially because people haven't been able to physically travel as easily, particularly to Italy, which has been badly affected. So what is this? Go into a bit this concept of traveling to Italy with TV shows, because we think like, well, we'll just watch a TV show to listen to some Italian and that's good enough, or maybe we'll learn a few expressions. But why see it as an opportunity to travel? What's that all about?
Well, I think that over the last year, as you said, but I had noticed it before the pandemic, even when people had access to flights around the clock and could travel. I noticed with my clients, there was just this thing of feeling transported by watching some TV shows and just catching, again, we're talking about the mundane aspects, nothing, didn't have to be anything exotic that I had to be seeing, but knowing that it's in the country of the language they're learning just helped feel in touch. But then I think there's also something else going on this, because it's not necessarily seeing the scenes, the beautiful landscapes, things like that. That is not the only way of traveling that you can have happening in a TV show, but just hearing people talk about different realities, seeing jokes in that language and trying to be a part of understanding that joke, which is a huge leap forward for anybody learning a language, any language. Or just saying, okay, where are the characters going? Why are they hanging out? Where do they go? Where for them? What is for them a good time? Where are they going to have a good time? Just these are bits and pieces that you don't get in one episode, but you accumulate over time. But you have to be, paying attention. And when you are intentional about it, when you know that that is what's happening, you can allow all that tiny bite-sized information to sort of accumulate. Or you can even take notes if you want to, but it doesn't have to be something really, really, you don't have to make a big deal out of it. But just bring a level of awareness so that maybe one day you can travel there, you can feel closer, more inside the culture, because these are TV shows that natives are watching. I mean, that's one of the common complaints of our clients, is that they feel they know the language, but they feel that being left out. No matter how well they know the language, they feel a bit left out, and they find resources that are for learners. They're not ready maybe for native content, but what is the compromise? How can they level up, so to speak? And TV shows are not graded for anybody, and they are there providing us with all this. We can be sort of detectives to the culture that we are approaching, to the country that we feel connected to. In the case of Italy and my clients, they were heartbroken. I mean, it's really hard to describe, but they felt heartbroken that they were watching this country suffer so much. And they were so far away. They felt like they needed their Italian fix and they couldn't get it. Yes. But that's the sort of email I got. And that is one way of seeing it. It's also a way of, of supporting Italian culture in a way. And depends on the TV shows, but you get to see so many bits and things. In Italian TV shows, there's a big attention to detail. So all the little obsession of Italian obsession with beauty in daily life is present in practically all TV shows. So it's really a great way to immerse yourself in that sense of wonder and fascination with beauty and Italian lifestyle.
Yeah, it's Italian life. Okay, wow. Well, there's a lot that came up there, but I like this idea. Well, because I'm rather against sort of, here's a list of things you need to know about X culture, or here's a list of words you need to know to understand or be understood. This kind of like, give me all the information and then I'll be okay. I prefer this idea of, going into watching a TV show, just like you say, with some questions in mind. It doesn't have to be written out. It's not something you have to absolutely like notice and write down, but just being aware, like you say, where are people going? How are they going about their day-to-day life? And you're just noticing
How are they dressed? That's a big thing.
Probably very well if they're Italian. I mean, I can answer you that now without watching the TV show.
But you can think, okay, so the characters are all going out for dinner. What are they wearing? Or they're having breakfast. What are they wearing then? I mean, how are they dressed around the house? And it can get, they're tiny clues, not a big.
So it's, piecing together these clues. And I like that you can do that at any level. I mean, I don't really speak Italian. I don't speak Italian. I can sometimes guess, depending on what I'm watching, more or less what people might be saying based on knowledge of French and Spanish, but still, obviously, it's very limited. But I like that you could even come in with a low linguistic level, but you can always tune into the culture, even if you don't have all the language that you need yet. You can start observing these things. So I like that. I like that it's quite inclusive like that. So maybe we should talk about the TV series that you work with the most, which I have still never seen, but it's one of those series that it's on French TV. So I'm sure in other countries people have this series dubbed into their language probably. So it's Montalbano, il commissario Montalbano.
Il commissario Montalbano.
Perché il commissario Montalbano?
Okay, so first of all, I'd never watched it before I started teaching Italian. It's been around for almost 20 years. I never watched it. So imagine, so that see where I was coming from. And my clients were just, crazy about it. And so I said, well, let's have a look. Let's see what it's all about. And it took me a while to understand what it was, because I was still learning about Italy, because I was discovering the country through my clients' eyes, because I was a bit in a negative place right at the very beginning. I had some health issues, and I was a bit angry and fed up with Italy, because Italy can be tiring. It has its negative sides as well. And through this process, it was a very beautiful period, because I started noticing the positives of the country. And also through the TV show, I started noticing these things. The series is taken from books by the author who passed away 2 years ago, Andrea Camilleri. And his writing is very powerful. He was almost 100 when he passed away.
Wow.
Yes, he was extremely active. Now, of course, some of the stories are a bit old-fashioned, I think, from some points of view. But the writing is really powerful, and the images that you see in this show, some can be extremely poetic and powerful. So I think that through the TV show, I started having a renewed appreciation of my country, my own life. And it also, I think the show, but many Italian shows celebrate Italian lifestyle, the positives, the finding time for yourself, making little breaks for yourself within the day, taking care of yourself through food, through clothing, through walks. But yes, because clothing becomes a tool for self-expression, for self-celebration, for appreciation of life. And so I just became this this new world that I discovered my own world through it. And turns out there are many issues watching it, because there's Sicilian spoken in it.
Okay.
And so people always ask me about that. And then I noticed that my clients had a load of questions about everything, because they saw it from the outside, and so they had loads of questions. And so I started working specifically on that. And to this day, every time I work with a new student on Montalbano, with my coffee break with Montalbano, I always get new questions. It never ends. It's always somebody sees
Wow.
things from a completely different perspective that I'd never thought about. And so it's just like something that renews itself, and I see things always through different
That's
eyes.
that's amazing. I either didn't realize or I had forgotten that this was actually like this was like a student led. It wasn't you imposing that series because I was like, well, maybe you sat down and thought about it, and Montalbano is a series that best encapsulates traveling to Italy. But like you say, it's not necessarily the perfect series because we all know that there isn't one. Like you say, it takes place in Sicily. So that creates some issues. Also, one of the things I was thinking about is it's a just for people who don't know it, it is a detective series, right?
Absolutely. And there are many beautiful, wonderful detective series in Italy. And mm, and it's interesting to see how, I mean, my students are fascinated how the thriller part, the whole detective part, develops in a different way compared to an American show. You know, Americans have, you know, the fame of making the best detective shows, and this is obviously a different perspective. You know, as even detective shows from other countries, you see different values, different ethics, different ways of presenting the hero, right? Italian heroes are extremely fallible.
Okay. Yeah, they're not like superhero
Or also the
detectives.
different way of presenting the mafia.
Okay.
And on organized crime, maybe more close to reality, or more, well, and Camilleri, being from Sicily, would give a very interesting perspective of organized crime.
Okay,
Please,
interesting.
back to
And
you.
yeah, no, it's just because when I think of detective series, it wouldn't normally strike me as the type of series that I would necessarily pick for someone. I mean, obviously the students kind of picked it for themselves, if you like, because I would be like, well, you're learning a lot of, maybe legal or judicial language. I like watching true crime documentaries in French, so I actually do know quite a lot of words to do with, the criminal justice system, which aren't particularly useful for me day to day, but they are useful for
No,
watching this series. But I'm imagining that there's much more to it. You've already said a little bit, there's much more to it than the actual like procedural police language. Like there must be a lot of day-to-day language, because it sounds like Montalbano also spends quite a lot of his days just like drinking coffee.
drinking coffee, eating at the restaurant. He likes to eat alone in silence. This is something that I can completely relate to. And there's some dish being cooked in one of the episodes. They have a social life, so we get to see, yes, of course, that
Okay.
that's dominant, the legal aspect, not legal, but the criminal aspect.
Yeah, the criminal aspect. But that is probably part of being a good detective, is probably hanging out in restaurants and bars and cafes and talking to people, and
And beautiful women.
and yeah, they always
And
know like who the
flirting.
yeah, but I mean that's it. But part of it is getting people to talk to you and getting people to give you information and to trust you. So I can imagine that makes sense for an Italian detective. I'm just trying to compare in my head. I haven't watched any, like, there are some really good UK detective shows. My dad is a big fan of detective novels, so he reads a lot of. There's actually a lot of Scottish writers who are really good crime writers, like Val McDermid and the guy who writes the Rebus books. Oh God, what's he called? Ian something. But yeah, there's a lot of like, so he reads a lot of crime fiction, and a lot of those books have been turned into TV series. But probably the most famous Scottish one is Taggart, which you might have seen it on TV when
I'm
you,
familiar with it. Yes, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
maybe when you lived in the UK, you might have seen it on TV. But yeah, so
Mm.
Taggart is a Scottish series that went on for a long time. It might even still be going now, but I think maybe the lead actor died or something. But I mean, to me, that's a show that would probably like be very sort of grey looking, like the weather's always cloudy because it's in Glasgow. And
Yes.
I'm not even sure if you really see them eating. Maybe you would see them having like a cup of tea out of a flask or a bag of crisps. But I'm not sure that you would see them sitting down to eat a nice. I really don't think food features much in the detective series in the US and UK, do they eat in CSI, or do they just like chop up dead bodies? I don't think
They chop up dead bodies, yes, but they also do a tiny bit of eating. But I think that too is interesting in that you see how they eat on the job, on the run, while doing something else, and that brings about very interesting conversations. Well, for me, they're interesting, but no, it does, because I get these questions all the time about how for an Italian it's unthinkable to not eat sitting down at a table, laying out the table and doing things, and eating standing while walking or while driving is pretty much
it's quite
crime.
taboo. In France as well, it would be very, you're not even allowed to eat at your desk at work. You either have to go home for lunch, or you have to go to the staff canteen or the break room. You cannot eat a sandwich at your desk. It's actually illegal, which sounds completely insane. They have changed it a little bit for the pandemic, but that is really like not a thing. And it's funny because I've worked in offices in the UK where they've been like, oh, everybody just eats at their desk, as in if you don't eat at your desk, you're in trouble. It's so funny. When I was told that, I just went out to eat every day. I never ate at my desk, like unless the weather was bad or something.
But you see, it's always that thing about how what we think is normal for us is not normal for somebody else. So in anything, even, I hate saying even CSI, because I think CSI has had its big time, a big impact. I think it is something that interests people. It's culturally as well, because just people pick up on different things depending on where they live and so on, and they just notice these things, or even noticing that something is considered okay somewhere and not okay somewhere else. It just, there's many ways of going.
That's fascinating. Actually, talking about CSI, I don't want to go too far into CSI, but even that's a show that has a different atmosphere according to where it's filmed, because you've got CSI Miami, the sunglasses on, beaches, but all this kind of thing. But then you go to the New York version, and it's kind of like gritty. We're in the city, it's New York. So even within the US, you get to see, obviously the USA, it's a huge country, it's a continent-sized country. It's very, very different depending on, whether you're in California or Alabama or Connecticut or, wherever it is. So even a series, I think CSI has some ridiculous elements to it as well. Like they seem to have the complete database of all the pubic hairs of all the people in the country. They find this one hair and they're like, oh yeah, you're in the database. Okay. If only it was that easy, to do police work.
Yes, but the ambiance, what you're saying, the ambiance of every CSI, depending on the town, is different. And I think that learners definitely would go and pick up on, they have to pick up on that. There's so much to pick up on. Why are there these big differences between Miami and New York?
It's very in your face in the way that CSI is filmed. I haven't seen it for a long time, but
I used to watch it a lot.
Yeah, it's one of these things that's on TV all the time. In fact, detective series are a really big feature of a lot of cultures and a lot of TV. There's obviously, because there's the Scandinavian ones, there's the Scottish ones, there's the Italian. I think every country has its detective series and its crime writers. So it's a nice thing to compare. It makes me want to go and watch. I'm going to go and watch some episodes of Taggart to see if we see them eating anything beyond a packet of crisps. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so that is all about Montalbano and all about how the backstory of that and detective series. So something that you emphasize, and because I've talked a lot about kind of, how do you understand series, as in, linguistically, and learn things from them and all that kind of thing. But you talk about that as well, of course. You can't just sit in front of the series and magically expecting certain stuff to happen by magic. But your focus is more on kind of taking time for yourself. So what does that look like? What do you kind of tell people to do? What do you encourage them to do?
First of all, to set realistic expectations. And this is not as easy as it may sound, because even I with my years of experience, years of conversations, I'm watching the second part of Lupin, and the first thing your brain starts doing is, oh, maybe I should be doing this. And then you have to sort of shut your inner voice up and say, okay, I'm going to do this, and it's perfectly okay. I'm not going to check out every word. I will do this, or I will take away subtitles for 5 minutes, or leave them on for 5 minutes, depending on the context. If there's a context that just have realistic expectations depending on what your level of the language is. Just don't think that it has to be a marathon of cramming as much language learning in it as possible, because here's what my strategy is. Yes, you can learn a language from a TV show, but you have to be strategic about it and not expect to do it like for the whole 45 minutes or 1 hour that the episode lasts, because that is not going to happen, period. No matter how motivated you are, that is not going to happen. Nobody's focused for 45, 60 minutes. You know, you're watching in your own language, you tune out a bit, you get distracted, you think, oh, maybe there's a boring moment, you're not quite following. So instead, if you say, okay, I'll do everything I have to do in 5 minutes, and then I will just enjoy the rest of the show. Maybe I'll take notes for 5 minutes. That's what it looks for me, setting realistic expectations, being okay with them being realistic, and not robbing the TV show of enjoyment, because then you're defying you're defeating the whole purpose of it. Because according to me, when you enjoy yourself, you are creating new pathways in your brain. Your brain is associating that beautiful moment, that enjoyable moment, with the language you're learning, with the fun you're having, and then the things that you have in that moment are more memorable. You're associating positive emotions to words and sounds and creating positive memories that will stick around for a while. And you will go at it with renewed passion, and it can become a moment for yourself, an enjoyable moment in which you feel connected to the country, connected to the language, but also connected to yourself. Because when you start downplaying your perfectionism, your high expectations that we still seem to all have, you become more confident, you become more assured, because you're saying, no, you know what, I'm not going to be perfect for a perfect language learner throughout the whole show. I'm going to be doing something for 5 minutes, and that's perfectly okay. You are listening to yourself, you're speaking against your negative self-talk, and that makes us overall quite happy, content with ourselves, because realistic goals, you can achieve them. And so after, you can also say, hey, yeah, I did this, wow, I really rocked it. And yes, let's have a good time. For once, there's nothing wrong with having a good time. Well, it's not a joke either. It's like everybody's fear of slacking off, being a bit self-indulgent, being kind to themselves, as if there was something wrong with being kind to ourselves, you know? Sorry, I get carried away on
No,
this.
that's
I
fine.
get
No,
really fired up about the topic, because if
yeah,
you...
but that's great. That's a really good message to have. Preach that message. Everybody needs to hear that. Be more like Montalbano, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, you're a detective, somebody's died, but have a coffee first. Have a coffee
Exactly.
first. Nobody did a police interrogation well when they hadn't had their coffee. Let's be honest. You
Or
need
a
your
good meal.
or a good meal. Yeah, you need a good meal in you to be able to do a good job. So yeah, no, I like that reminder. Okay, so it's yeah, because we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. Like, you can't do nothing, but at the same time, you don't want to become like obsessively kind of filling notebooks and stuff when you're supposed to be doing something fun for yourself. So yeah, I like this idea that you can find a balance. So the idea is to just, I think you've mentioned things like, sort of putting boundaries on what you do. So like, instead of saying, I'm going to learn every single new word in this in this episode, I'll learn, I mean, sometimes
Five words. Five
five
words.
words. Yeah, I like to say that 3 to 5, or I'll, you know, stop it after this number of minutes and just have a look at the subtitles or something like this.
Yes. I mean, think if people say 5 words, that's so little. No, it isn't, because you have to see the big picture. So let's say a season of whatever series has 6, 7 episodes, 5 times 6 episodes. It's not bad to learn 50 new words that you actually remember, though.
Yeah,
Here's
I was
the
going to
thing. You
say,
actually remember them, and they'll be recurring, because the vocab of every given show is going to be more or less
comes back.
coming back. So, you know, so really.
But I do prefer the idea of like, I mean, this sounds like a cop-out when you're a teacher, but I do prefer to say to people like, I might highlight some words in a movie that come up if I really think the word is really, really important, that you're going to hear it a lot and you might not have known it. But usually I just say something like, you know, what words caught your eye? What words did you heard it and you thought, oh, that's a really cool expression. Like, I think I would use that. That sounds like something I would say in English. And yeah, I do feel a bit like, oh, I should be telling them what words to learn, but I don't know exactly what words you want to learn or what words you need. Or, you know, sometimes people surprise you because they do know a word and you assume they didn't know it. So I think only you sometimes can know what words you need. And yeah, often a limited number is better because you're more likely to remember them. I think that's the thing. It's words that you're going to learn, remember, and use. So that's only really a limited number. And you have to hear them in different contexts as well until they become really familiar. But yeah, that's the nice thing about TV series, is the words do come back, especially I think in a detective show. Like, they're always going to be talking about certain words to do with crime and stuff that you're going to get.
Not necessarily only crime, though.
Yeah,
it can be the relationship with the team. It can be the relationship with the restaurant, or it can even be words that you like the sound of or you find them funny. I mean, anything that strikes your fancy. I mean, I think that quality over quantity, we live in a world that pushes us for quantity, because when you're doing more, it seems like you are achieving more. But I've noticed that in language learning, the opposite is true, actually. Because when we're leaving a bit of space in our brains to take in what we are, to assimilate what we are exposed to, that's when great things happen. Not when we are cramming everything in our brains. We are constantly cramming stuff in our heads as it is. Why add to the general workload of our poor befuddled brains? Mine, at least, is befuddled.
And I think it's helpful to know, like, you're never done sort of learning things. Like, there's always new words to learn in your own language or another language you're learning. Like, there's always more to uncover, because nobody knows all the words ever.
Absolutely. It doesn't even have to be about words, though. It can also be about some expression, some different construction of a sentence, or some way, some sounds. You know how in French you have aber, you have all these little sounds that you make between. Yeah, every language has these little filler sounds.
Yeah.
Aber oui, and you know, something like that, and you can just notice them, and those will definitely be coming back.
Oh yeah, you can't avoid them.
You can't avoid them. Or even look at the learning from the gestuality of the characters and how they behave around themselves, and because language, how are they speaking to each other in the sense of formal and informal language, you know? This is a lot of stuff. You cannot do everything at the same time, and you shouldn't. You can just decide to focus on one aspect.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Or
build up.
Exactly. Yeah, one episode could be this aspect and another could be focusing on something else, you know, depending on what you've noticed. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah, I like that. Be a bit more selective, which I think is actually quite hard to do.
Very hard.
Yeah, because we think more is more is more and more is better. Sometimes less is more and less is better. So
I think that people that follow you, I mean, if I may, Kara,
yes,
you are a bit of a quiet rebel, right?
maybe.
You are a soft-spoken rebel. And I think that so I think that your readers are a bit attuned to that. Hope. I think the most rebellious thing we can do is start to treat ourselves with more compassion, with, saying, what, the system wants me to do more, but I'm going to do less and better and have more fun, and the hell with the system, because the system is wrong. Capitalism. Linguistic capitalism.
is wrong. Yeah. Okay. No, I like that. That's great. I can't really think of anything to add to that. Maybe the last thing I want to talk about is subtitles, which is something we've talked a lot about over the years, and it's something people ask me about it every single time. I don't know if you have been asked about it. Yeah. Yeah, the same person interviewed us both recently, and I know he asked me about it. I don't know if he asked you about it. But...
Yes.
Okay, so people sort of expect an opinion on this, and
okay. So now the sound I just made, that's an Italian sound to say, of course, a lot. All right. So that just for your information, if you are not attuned to. We will keep on having conversations about subtitles still forever. But I would really, I don't know about you, Kara, but what really, it's like how people feel defeated when they acknowledge or confess that they've used subtitles, like they've committed some big crime.
Yeah,
they haven't. They've done something that makes sense. Subtitles are such a powerful tool, also because subtitles are so often incorrect. So they're just, sort of a guideline. Why are they incorrect? Find out why were they incorrect in that sentence. That's really interesting. You can learn from that too. Personally, I think it's a bit of our ego getting in the way, because we like to feel that we have learned a language completely when we can watch something without subtitles. Thing is that we often tune in with subtitles even when we know the language and we are native, because again, we are tuning out. We're not paying a lot of attention in our own native languages. So I encourage my clients, I don't know how successfully, to use those subtitles as the superpower and not as the kryptonite that they feel it actually is. And it takes a lot of work, constant reassurance, constant saying, hey, let's use the subtitle to do this, instead of feeling like it's a defeat, because it's not a defeat. It's a guideline towards another culture, another way of seeing things. So much beautiful things can be done with subtitles, and they also allow you to enjoy the movie, TV show much more. That's it. That's all I can say. I mean, otherwise we'll keep on talking and talking about it. But people I hope that if through time we can educate people more and more about the benefits of subtitles and how they actually have so much untapped potential.
Indeed. Yeah, I mean, I don't see how you can improve your listening without having some kind of written version of what you've heard at some point. So in that sense, that subtitles just fit into that general good practice, in my opinion, of using a transcript, or it doesn't have to be the subtitles, it could be the movie script, depending on what you're working with. But yeah, they're just a tool. Yeah, I mean, that's usually how I answer this question. But I mean, are there really people still going around saying you must never use them, or you must always use them? Or
I don't know if there's anybody going around there, but I know our students still feel they don't give themselves permission very easily to keep them there and feel good about it. That is our ego getting in the way. I mean, I don't want to go all psychoanalytical, but that is because as language learners, we really have to learn to leave our ego, our vanity at the door, and allow ourselves to be imperfect, but not because we're not ambitious, but because we're really, really ambitious. We really want to learn the language. We really want to go to the country of our dreams. And the only way of doing that is allowing subtitles in our life. And last but not least, even when we have an advanced level of the language, keeping subtitles there is a great way to keep our reading and listening skills in shape. Win-win. Yay. We're all happy.
That's a really good point. This is getting to be my weak area in French now because I don't read and write so much, but I do listen a lot. Yeah, that would be useful to me. I mean, sometimes I watch things in English on the French TV and it has the French subtitles, so that, and I love reading them. I love seeing how people have translated certain things. Absolutely fascinating. It's such a tough job, and it's not necessarily well paid, and people have to work on very short deadlines. So I really think it's remarkable, the work that people do when they do
Preach. I'm with you on that. I used to do subtitle translation, and it's a really
tough gig.
Tough gig. It's wonderful while you're doing it, but it's not a wonderful paycheck, and you have high standards, and it's this whole world behind it.
Yeah, but that's funny about the ego. I've just finished listening to a book. It's a book called Burnout, and they mentioned Jane Eyre because they were talking about sort of the inner critic, and one of the writers was saying, my inner critic is it Rochester, who's the hero in the book, and his wife is locked in the attic.
Yes,
Mrs. Rochester. Yes. And so her inner critic is this character in Jane Eyre who's kind of the mad woman in the attic, and that was the metaphor for your inner critic. And it's really funny because one of my students had just mentioned to me, "Oh yeah, I'm watching the TV series version of Jane Eyre." But yeah, I think you don't want to let the mad woman who's getting upset about subtitles in your head kind of take over, because
she's just spoil everything for you, and you will not achieve your dream, your goals, and so on. So
yeah, it's very, very hard to unlearn this sort of self-critical and negative behavior, because we all think that is how you achieve things, and not through self-kindness. So it's very hard to change, but I like your message that it can just be little tweaks. And I think starting from that place of as you've said, kind of this is my special time for traveling to Italy. I'm going to crack a case with Montalbano. We're going to figure out who did it. And I'm gonna.
You don't always crack the case.
They don't always crack the case.
No, he does, but I'm left wondering, scratching my head as how did that happen again?
It's like when you watch an episode of Poirot and he explains everything at the end, and you're like, I didn't notice that. Like, how did
exactly?
He's very much like, well, I'm smarter than everybody, so of course I figured it out. Yeah, so they crack the case. That's okay then. But yeah, no, I like that as well. Like approaching it in a Montalbano way, have a nice meal before you try and do your complicated detective work.
A nice meal is always a good idea.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Elfin,
Thank you, Cara,
for coming on to talk about. I feel like we should have done this many more times and starting a long time ago. But anyway, you're here now, so that's the important thing.
In fact.
So could you tell people where they can find you on the internet?
Yes, on the internet, they can find me at allaboutitalian.com. The blog will be ready in 2 weeks. Yes, and there's 2 amazing posts coming up. I'm really excited about TV shows, about rabbit holes. One is about rabbit holes and TV shows. So I'm really excited. And you can find me on Instagram at allaboutitalian as well. That is my handle on Instagram.
Do you want to mention your podcast as well?
If there's anybody, yes, if there's anybody learning Italian, authentic Italian conversations between friends, the podcast is Con Parole Nostre. Con Parole Nostre on Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, blah blah blah.
You can find it everywhere there's podcasts.
You can find it everywhere there's podcasts. Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I'll put It was, yeah. I'll put all the links and every TV show we've mentioned, I will try to put it in the links under this video. So wherever this is, you will have the links to all of Elfin stuff and the links to all the random TV shows that we mentioned during this chat. So thank you, Elfin. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye.
See you again soon. Bye.
Bye.